and welcome to this series that I've had on my mind for, I guess, since the beginning of the channel, where I wanted to read a range of books from one specific author at a time to really try and figure out their style, how it translates between different books, different genres, ideas, while also just trying to figure out if the author is for me or not. And we're kicking that off with Kingfisher because I've never read from her before, but also she's so incredibly interesting to me. The idea that she writes, I believe, all the way down from juvenile to adult. A huge range, but also different genres, which is the main thing I was trying to target when I was picking books for this. So I have a retelling science fiction, at least according to my library. It's a sci-fi. I think it's more sci-fi fantasy, but whatever. It's a Snow White retelling. That's about as much as I know about it. And for fantasy, I have Paladin's Grace. Fantasy / romance.
Like a paladin and a princess kind of romance, which sounded cute.
And to top it off, a horror. What Moves the Dead. This is also a retelling. And actually, in the order that I showed you that is the order of highest to lowest expectations. No, lowest to highest expectations. So I'm reading this one first because I think it's the one I'm least likely to love. I don't know. The description of some of her other fantasies, I also wasn't totally into. And then Paladin's Grace was already on my TBR, and I am most excited to read her horror because I mostly read horror and I've heard good things. So let's dig in to Hemlock and Silver by Kingfisher. I've finished chapter 6, and I have some thoughts to share. So in this book, we're following Anya, who has been visited by the king because his daughter, Snow, seems to be poisoned. This is extremely casual. Dare I say, too casual. And I was kind of trying to figure out, like, what about the storytelling felt so weird? Why it felt so wrong? And once it started getting deeper into the exposition, I was like, oh, there it is. This reads YA. This reads like young adult. In the tone, in the way the world is built and it explains things to you, it feels like I am not the target audience. So that not off to a good start. I gotta be honest. Not that YA is bad. It's not for me. I did not read as a young adult. It's just a little too obvious. It's not fun. Also, Anya is at least in her early 30s. And she reads very awkward. And don't get me wrong, the 30-year-olds can be awkward, but with the writing style already feeling so young, the character doesn't feel as young as the book kind of sets her up to be. But that's all I had to say. A check-in the fact that I think I picked up the wrong book because I'm not loving it so far. I'm getting a bad impression. So, yeah, that's our plot. That's our main character. That's the vibe. I'm so sorry. I have to, I'm reading chapter 6 and I have to pop in. Of just a perfect example of why I'm like, why is this written so weird? And they're traveling to snow or whatever. She sees this, like, fruit, this vegetable, a plant. And she goes on to explain how this plant is, like, poisonous. And then the king is like, why are you looking at that plant weird? And she's like, oh, well, and I explained to him what she just fucking explained to us. Why did it have to be written this way? Why did it have to be explained as her thoughts and not as dialogue? I feel like that would make more sense. Because then you wouldn't have to say, I explained to him everything I basically just explained to you. It's like, just say it to him. Why do you have to say it to me if you're gonna say it anyways? Halfway through, done reading for the day. It came up a couple of times in the first few chapters, and like I noticed it, but kind of let it go, and then it kept coming up the fact that Anya was losing her train of thought. She'd say things like, I lost the thread of the conversation, or someone would say something, she'd think, and then be like, oh, they're still talking. And so it's now pretty obvious that Anya has some impulse control issues and lack of focus. As someone who can relate to that, it
very annoying. To read someone just lacking focus. And not that it's bad or that it's anything. It's just, ooh, it sucks. It sucks to relate to this. On like a deep personal level, I hate it. But that's, nothing that it doesn't take away anything. It's just like, ugh. Actually really interesting, I will say, is that this is all about Anya and her poison solving. Snow has barely been in it so far, which I kind of appreciate. I like that it's not so direct of a retelling that I'm waiting for the next story beat to hit. You know what I mean? It's not as predictable as I assumed it might be. But that's it for my midway check-in. Thoughts, feelings? No, nothing.
The romance in this is ridiculous. And again, reinforces just how absolutely young this feels. Because it's not just the casualness of the writing. Like, on top of that, everything has to be said out loud. There's no subtlety. There's no, like, subtext. There's nothing to read into. It's very surface level. And I don't say this with negative implications. I'm just saying why it feels so young and why it doesn't feel like, I guess, the kind of adult book that I would read. Because, I don't know, maybe I'm kind of backtracking a little bit now, because it is a little like, just because it's adult means it has to be more than simply for the purpose of entertainment. I guess I am backtracking a little bit on that thought. But in my experience, it makes it feel younger than I'm sure is intended. But as I was saying about the romance, it feels out of nowhere. There's no good hinting up until halfway through. It's kind of just like relying on you wanting there to be chemistry, but there isn't any. The book just wants you to think there is. And in assuming the reader thought that they were cute together, suddenly there's a scene and she's like, oh my god, he could totally kiss me right now. Why am I thinking this? I'm like, I don't know. Why are you thinking this? There's no preamble. And so because of that, it also makes it seem far more like it's just like a crush, which is fine. She can have a crush on this big strong man. Who cares? Whatever. But instead of being like, maybe I kind of have a crush, she's like, I should tell him I'm in love with him. From 0 to 100, out of nowhere. And again is why this feels so young, because no one would think that. I mean, that's a lie. But what grown-ass woman is like, this might just be a crush. We have to be in close quarters. Everyone's starting rumors. I'm just being taken by the moment. I don't really like him. It's just a crush. It's fine. No, she's like, I love him. I am in love with him, in fact. Holy fuck. So the romance is awful. What also doesn't need to be here is the fact that it's a retelling, and I'm not saying that negatively. I'm really interested in the idea of reading this without the character being called Snow. Because that's it. Her name is Snow. That's the only clue. That's the only hint that this is a retelling. And you could very easily just say it's inspired by Snow White, and that's it. So I couldn't tell you if that's like a negative or not. For me, it just makes me curious. If that was entirely removed and this was instead its own entity, which it could very easily be, if the book would be more or less successful. One other note, third point, the use of saints. I wish I had an ebook of this, just so I could search how many times the word saint. Oh, saints, help me. Dear saints. Oh, my saints. It's so fucking annoying. Did I have anything else to say? Nope. That's it. So bad start to the introduction to Kingfisher. I can't decide if it's a 2 or 1.5. So I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and say 2. Because a 1.5 feels too mean. Yeah, it's a 2. Because for me, a 2-star is more like, this was not for me. And this was ridiculously not for me. That's it. So the plan was originally, I wanted to read Paladin's Grace next, but I am so turned off. I am so not interested in reading another fantasy-esque at this very moment, because this read like the exact kind of fantasy that turns me off from the genre completely. This was just the embodiment of everything that repels me. So I don't want to read Paladin's Grace. So tonight, I'm going to dive into What Moves the Dead, which is another retelling, like I said, unfortunately, but whatever. Fuck. Yep. %-ish, not really. Finished chapter 8. I think it's just over halfway. Interesting world building. The whole gender thing of var and van, or car and can, or something like that. It's interesting. That's kind of it. But it's... Our main character gets a letter from his friend's sister, and she's worried that her brother thinks she looks like she's about to drop dead. So they go to visit the Ushers in their home, and their home is immediately disgusting and falling apart, and says that they both look ghastly. So we're following them, trying to figure out why. Now, I don't think I've read The Fall of the House of Usher, but I'm pretty sure the house is not supposed to be, at least originally. It's a retelling, so, taking liberties as you wish. But in the original, I believe the house gradually gets worse. In here, it's already falling apart, and it's disgusting, and everything is described as moldering. It's a little like, we get it. There's mold. There's spores. I know I am probably halfway through this vlog at the moment. I don't think I like Kingfisher, which really sucks. Oh boy. Yeah, so I don't like the first person aspect of her books, and I want to read third person. I don't like this anymore. I'm not having fun. So this happened a couple of times in Hemlock. Did I touch the mic? I'm so sorry. It happened a couple times in Hemlock where the character in the first person says you. So the fourth wall is shattered. It doesn't exist because the character has addressed the audience. And when this ended, there was no reason for the character to address the audience. It wasn't like, and I'm telling you this future daughter of mine or some bullshit, and thus is my story of why the world will forever remember the name Anya. There's no, it just ends. It just ends. The happy live after blah, 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 who cares? It ends. There's no reason to address the audience. Okay. So when this person says you and addresses the audience, I'm like, why are we doing this again? What am I reading? What am I reading? A journal? Am I reading a scientific article? Why are you addressing me? You are making me an active participant in the story. Why? And so I'm thinking, I'm like, what other books write epistolary, if that's what this is pretending to be? What other books address the audience? And I'm in the middle of Don Quixote right now, which is the king of breaking the fourth wall and being like, the author didn't write what happened in the scene, so I'm gonna make it up. And Dracula, one of my favorite books, is epistolary. It makes it blatant that this is a sound recording, or I had this conversation and I wrote it shorthand, so now I'm gonna write it longhand so I can keep track. Why do those books work? Why can those make me a participant? When this person addresses me, why does it make me uncomfortable? Why does it not work? And it's because there's irony. There's no irony in this. Why is it there? In Don Quixote, listen, and the donkey. It even says in the prologue why the fourth wall is getting shattered and what that does to a book, to the audience, to the characters in the story. When you break the fourth wall, it makes the novel appear unstable. The traditional authority of the author is subverted, and the narrative is interrupted by metafictional devices, which serve to confound fiction and reality. Are we understanding? Do we get it? It's a literary device. This, addressing the audience, does nothing. It is not adding a layer to the story. It's not adding any layers to the character. I mean, to be fair, I haven't finished it. Let me revert that. This does nothing by referring to the audience. It doesn't add any depth. It doesn't add any irony. I'm just there. Suddenly I'm here in the world and I don't know why. And I'm never told who I am in this world. I'm just suddenly an active participant for these 2 sentences and then I'm gone. I don't know about you, but in like the 10th grade, I learned when I was writing an essay, I do not address the reader because I don't know who's reading it. One does not write an essay saying, when you're looking to colleges, there's something you need to keep in mind. No, you don't do that. You say, when a student is looking at colleges, there's something they need to keep in mind because it is a third party. They are not a part of writing the essay. Do not include them. You don't know who's reading. I'm crashing the fuck out. I don't understand. The only excuse is because it's lazy writing. I'll be brave and say it. Everyone fucking loves Kingfisher. Kingfisher, fantastic. Look at these Goodreads ratings. Wow. Look at these Storygraph ratings. Oh my goodness. The DNF rate, it's so low. 3%? Who could imagine? Me. I can only excuse it as lazy writing. And that's it. Just laziness. So yeah, I'm halfway through. Who am I? I don't know. Oh, something else I had to complain about. Sometimes Easton, talking about not knowing who the audience is and being an active participant even though I'm not. Yes. Easton will refer to something in this fictional history and be like, if you know anything about Galician culture, it's this story. And the audience, I don't know anything about it because it's a fictional world. And yet, Easton feels compelled to explain to me the manners of an old English woman. And I may not know many old English women personally, but I understand that there are some quirks. So, who am I? Because I'm a part of this now. It's just weird. And I think I hate it. I want to read something that is third person by Kingfisher. I don't know if Paladin's Grace is in third person. Dear God, it's in the third person. Okay. Yeah. Hello. I'm very tired, as you may be able to guess why. First things first, I guess. I kind of want to say that if you are a Team Kingfisher fan, I commend you for still watching. Because I understand how hard it is to hear a stranger talk crap about something you love, or just really like, sometimes hearing strongly opposed opinions are difficult, and like, just genuinely. And even with that, again, a lot of Kingfisher's books are very highly rated. And I think that's because most people are going in already knowing that her style and of her writing and characters, they gel with pretty well. I don't think as many are going in mostly blind like I did. So first update is I did finish What Moves the Dead, and I don't really have much to say. I feel like the book cover gives away any sort of mystery this could have, so it was kind of whatever. I'm giving it 2 stars. And I think it's really interesting that I ended up giving Hemlock and Silver a better rating than this. Both of these are very, I guess to be fair, very close between a 2.5 and a 2. But I didn't have to force myself to read Hemlock and Silver as much. That one had a far more interesting story and conflict than this. Same with the characters, I guess. Even though I didn't love them, I was more drawn to them than this. So after What Moves the Dead, I did pick up Paladin's grace. And I was looking forward to it because I did see that it was written in the third person. But there's like no reason for it to be written in the third person. And I know that sounds juxtaposing to what I said earlier, but more so to say there are so many thoughts and like so many italicized lines that don't need to be there, and it might as well be written in the first person. Chapter 5 is when our two characters meet, and chapter 6 immediately starts with being in Grace's perspective, reiterating the scene we just read, but through her eyes, and then her thoughts that also were just reiterating the scene. And again, a lot of the inner dialogue is just not necessary. You could very easily express the same exact thing through the third person. The only thing that the thoughts I feel like were doing successfully was portraying the fact that the knight was more poetic in a way with how he thought. And because of that, I was extremely tempted to immediately DNF it at the beginning of chapter 6 because I was like, why are we doing it this way? There's no reason. Fuck. After that, she's getting ready for this big fancy ball or meeting the prince or whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is the book has already established, fairly sassily, I might add, that she is comfortable and well-versed with the like rich side of town. She had made some comments and pointed out that she had lived there for a couple of years. But getting ready for this big fancy event, her friend is having to explain all these rules and nuances. And again, just kind of like, the dialogue does not need to be here. She's a perfumer. I would presume she knows what the hoity-toity rich people are like and their nuances and the fashion of these big events. Why doesn't she? How is this her first time? Not long after the autopsy scene, and I think there was some pregnancy thing, not with the main characters, but there was something like that I DNF'd after that. I really did not enjoy reading this, and I hated the romance. It wasn't as bad as Hemlock and Silver, where it was out of nowhere, she's like, I'm in love with him, but it just wasn't appealing to me. It just wasn't my thing. And the fact that I was reading this because I liked the idea of a night romance being cute, this was cavity-inducing levels of sweet. And I did definitely feel that with Hemlock and Silver as well, where scenes happen or people say things or they think certain things specifically so the audience can react and say, aw, isn't that cute? It doesn't feel genuine. This knight knits socks. Why the specification? He can be a knitter. It feels like it's only there to be like, look, he has a soft spot and he does this really cute thing. And it's like, I get it. You don't need to trick me into feeling this way. Just be a better author and then I'll genuinely feel that way. That was mean to say, but it's true. So the conclusion I came to, and because I really felt conflicted with this entire reading vlog, and I didn't want to end it on the note of, yeah, I hate everything. I decided to pick up one more horror. And the two that I knew were most talked about with Kingfisher and horror are the Twisted Ones and the Hollow Place. I also know that they're extremely similar stories, and it's kind of weird how similar they are, which is a note in and of itself. But I kind of decided to let Reddit speak for me and decide, you know, which one is more universally loved, or at least which one is arguably better rated in their opinion. So I picked up the Twisted Ones, and I gotta say, I'm halfway. And I'm not hating myself. But also, to give myself lots of justification and make me feel extremely valid, it immediately breaks the fourth wall. And we are instantly, within the first few pages, established who we are, who the author is, why we're reading this. She says you constantly, but it's okay because I know who I am and I know what I'm reading. The world is instantly established, and it's because she's retelling this story that she doesn't think anyone's going to believe and just needs to write it down. She's not doing it for money. She's not doing it because she wants the recognition or the fame. She just wants the story to be told. Fantastic. Crazy. It's pretty telling that this is the oldest of the ones that I've read for this video, because her style of addressing the audience and saying you in first-person written books isn't established potentially at the time of 2019. That's a huge assumption. There might be some confirmation bias. I don't care. I'm just so happy she did that. So hey, I'm halfway through. It's a pretty damn bold move to make your character a copy editor. At least I assume it's a copy editor. I'm just now realizing she just says that she's an editor for books. I don't know if that's a story editor or a copy editor. Either way, bold move, because you're immediately putting your book under a microscope a bit with that choice. The character feels more alive than in the other books, but she still feels disingenuous. Like, she says things that, again, feels like she's only saying it for the sake of getting a reaction out of the audience, which is why it feels disingenuous. Like, she bought a coffee and she contemplated even drinking it, and instead just letting it sit on the counter so she could smell it all day. Who the fuck genuinely thinks that? Like, that sounds like an engagement farming tweet. You know what I mean? Like, you want people to respond and say, oh my god, I feel that all the time. Like, I don't know if many people would agree with this. Maybe this is just me. The writing in this kind of feels like she's trying to mimic the style of Stephen King and is doing it in the worst way possible. Stephen King, I guess specifically of like Misery, only because that's the only one I've read that's in the first person. And I think I say that because King's writing to me is mainly all about the fact that his characters feel so alive. I am with them during their intrusive thoughts. I understand the deeper meaning behind their actions and the things they say, and when they regret saying something as soon as it comes out of their mouth. His character work is fantastic. And there's a lot here that feels as if she's trying to build those deeper thoughts and moments, but they just feel performative. The thoughts of this character are not these unfiltered, totally honest, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say it. Like, it's none of that. It is finely fucking filtered, so she can make sure you have the correct idea of this character. Again, all that to say, I'm not hating it. I just kind of, I think, strongly dislike the way Kingfisher writes characters. But the story itself is the most compelling out of the books I've read so far, which I guess I should say is the story of this woman. Her name is Mouse. She goes to her deceased grandmother's house to help clean it up so they can sell it, and she finds out that she was a hoarder, as well as finding her step-grandfather's notebook, his diary, so to speak, and he has some odd writings and rantings in there that Mouse ends up seeing in real life for herself. So, I'm gonna go lay down and hopefully finish this book. And thus, we've come to our conclusion, where The Twisted Ones was definitely my favorite of the bunch, but on the scope of things, still a 2.5. And so obviously Kingfisher is not for me, to put it gently. I can see the appeal for people who want those cozier books and more easily digestible stories, whether they be fantasy, romance, or horror. No matter what, they're cozy and digestible. And I feel confidently in that I am not a cozy person when it comes to books. Anything described as cozy, I don't think is for me. But to be fair, I'm like that with most things, I'd say. Oh, I did want to say, actually, I can see a lot of people who like this thing between us liking The Twisted Ones. Tonally, very different. This thing is significantly more depressive, and there's a lot more edge to it. It's less cozy. It's not at all cozy. Thematically, it kind of feels in the same realm of things. So there we have reading 4 books by T. Kingfisher, and the highest was a 2.5. I'm happy to have documented my experience, and that I was able to go in mostly blind. There's something to be said about diving into an author's work with minimal influence from outside parties. So, I hope you enjoyed this, even if I didn't enjoy the books, per se. But if you did, please like the video. It was a fun experiment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, where I hopefully pick an author I can gel a lot better with.